I did my solutions report on biodiversity loss in the oceans. For too long, we as humans have been hurting our oceans, and we can now see the impact we have had. But luckily, we are not too late if we try to change our ways now. We see in places like the northeast coast in the United States, with regulation of fishing and hunting seals, it's causing their populations to skyrocket, which in turn is causing sharks, such as the great white, to have a population spike. Gray seals and harbor seals are two of the most common species in places like Cape Cod. Their numbers were dwindling before around 1970, when a bunch of federal regulations were put on hunting and fishing marine mammals. And then when the seal population started to boom, the great white shark population also started to return due to there being an abundance of food for them. So this just means and shows that with laws and regulations, we can help populations in the oceans grow and see a comeback of animals who were thought to be long gone from certain areas. Then we move on to coral bleaching. The Great Barrier Reef is the only living organism that can be seen from space, but nearly half of the reef has died due to coral bleaching. Coral bleaching happens when water becomes warmer than usual, causing the coral to expel the algae from them, which turns the coral white. So the algae actually gives nutrients to the coral and causes them to have color. Coral bleaching itself does not kill the coral, but it adds an enormous amount of stress onto the coral and leaves it with a high mortality rate. And even if the coral does survive, it can take decades to recover fully. The severity of coral bleaching can be seen because one of the biggest reefs, which is home to so much coral, is the Great Barrier Reef, and the Great Barrier Reef provides a suitable environment for 1,500 species of fish, 411 types of coral, 134 types of sharks and rays, 6 out of the 7 world's threatened marine turtles, and more than 30 species of marine mammals, including the endangered dugong. The Great Barrier Reef also provides Australia with one of its biggest economic boosts due to the large number of tourists that travel to see the reef yearly. The reef is also a huge area for scientific study and discovery because it is the biggest habitat all in one area for marine life, so we can see how the different creatures interact with each other on the reef. Some solutions to coral bleaching. As of right now, in 2021, we don't have an immediate solution, which sadly means that we will see more of the Great Barrier Reef and other large reefs slowly die. But the problem can be slowed down and eventually stopped with laws that can be put in place as countries try to stop climate change, such as the Paris Climate Accords. And if we all start leading more sustainable lives and become more eco-friendly to try and put an end to climate change, we may be able to save places like the Great Barrier Reef for future generations to enjoy. Most countries of the world have put a ban on whaling, which is whale hunting. The only 3 exceptions to this rule are Iceland, Norway, and Japan, who use whales for their meat and body parts. In Japan, commercial whaling has been illegal since 1986, but whaling has never truly stopped because it's continued under the guise of research missions. And due to this, Japan has fallen under criticism because they barely produce any research on the whales that they say they're researching, and most of the meat of the whales caught go to restaurants. And recently, Japan pulled out of the IWC, the International Whaling Commission, which is responsible for the ban on commercial whaling. Some solutions to whaling, these are some offered by the group Greenpeace, are to follow the trail of money that goes into being able to let these whaling ships go on these expeditions and see if we can cut it off at the source. Another solution is to put political pressure on the governments of countries such as Japan, Norway, and Iceland, and using sanctions and import tariffs, which will harm their economy until they eventually stop the practice of whaling altogether. And one more solution to this would be that we make the punishment for somebody who is caught whaling or in the business of sending expeditions out to hunt whales, we give them a very high fine or a large punishment because this eventually, if it's a large fine, it would cause the whalers to lose more money than they would actually make. And in conclusion, it's necessary that we start trying to put laws into effect that will stop global warming and other man-made problems that negatively affect our oceans. As we can see, in the Northeast, marine mammal and fishing laws that were put into place have helped grow dwindling populations in the area. And if we do not change our ways now, we will soon lose some of the most vital ecosystems and creatures that inhabit them.